You may be wondering at this point, well, how does ExportKit handle different screen sizes and devices with Android? So let's take a look at 1102, and this is various Android screens. Now, we've only defined a few here. We're still mapping a lot of devices. But basically with Android, you will need to define each screen for your app to actually support that device, respective of that screen. So here, let's just hide it and go through a few of them. So you can see that this is our, well, this is actually a very large screen. So this is a 2560 XHDPI or 1280 MDPI. And if we go through a few of them, this is our landscape for 1200. You can see just denoted by the L and the P, whereas this is our portrait for the same device, or resolution actually. This is a 768, this is 720, this is a 480 landscape and a 480 portrait. So if we were to just go ahead and take a look at the actual individual layers, you'll note that basically each CSS screen has the same content repeated but repositioned and resized depending on what your actual creative needs are. Now you can watch one of our other tutorials for an explanation as to how to create responsive screens. We're not going to get into detail about that in this video. Now what we're going to do is just export this and take a look at the output files to see how ExportKit handles multiple screen sizes with your actual PSD to Android design. So let's just go ahead and open this up, layer effects, and let's go. Now once the export's complete, what we can do is basically just navigate to the folder. And once again, you'll see our basic Android folder. So we have a new project here. We want to copy the location of the actual folder. We open up Eclipse. This is our previous project. So again, what we want to do is import this as an existing project and paste the location. Now you'll see that we already have res included. So this is our new screens project. So we'll import this. Now previously we stated that if you do see any problems during the import, the easiest way to deal with this is to basically just restart Eclipse, and this will generate your Java runtime with your actual project. So what we're going to do is take a look at the resources that ExportKit created. Now for each individual screen that we have, what we have now are drawables, which is basically the images that are reflective for that individual screen. So we can take a look in the PSD once again. You'll note that each screen size, they do have different images, and what this is basically denoting is the density of the image. So ExportKit will handle this for you, where you do not need to create various image densities. ExportKit will actually designate the true size and position for that screen. So let's go back and take a look at the Java project. So you'll see that we have a drawable for each screen size that we've denoted, and we can take a look at our node DPI, which is our shape. Just look at that quickly. Actually, let's look at the sizes of the images. This is a 320, this is a 384. Let's look at a larger one, possibly 800. Now we also have our individual layouts that we've defined. So for each layout, and this will load, so let's just look at the actual UI. What this will have is the same object again. In the individual layout, it will be positioned and sized dependent on your actual Photoshop PSD. What this will do with the activity is only create one activity with the correct objects referenced. Now it's very important that in your responsive designs you don't have random objects in an individual screen. An object must be in your default and your target screen. Otherwise what will happen is that your Java code may render with an error because it cannot find that object. And now the screens are dependent on the device that you're using. So if you add an object to a large screen but you're on a smaller device, that object may not actually be available in Java, so you might get an error. So just note that you always have to keep the same layers and do not rename your layers. Now with our actual layouts, you can see that actually let's go to this one. The graphical layout should have been ready. Okay, so this on its own is our 320. Now in our PSD we do have a portrait and a landscape for that. Let's actually take a look and see. So this is our actual portrait, and let's hide that. and this is our landscape, and this is for the actual 480 HDPI. So what we can do now is basically navigate, or not navigate, but we can change the orientation of the device to see how ExportKit handles it. So let's just wait for this to render again. So you'll see that this is now the actual landscape design from our PSD document. And we can take a look at other devices. So I believe in Nexus 7 we do have a 1200. Let's just wait for this to load. Let's change the orientation. And while that loads, we can take a look that it's also created our colors and our strings. And these are the individual layout styles. Now, if we defined pages in each of the actual screens, what would happen is that you would get your layouts for each page and also your activities. So ExportKit will basically organize your full PSD into a working Android app with support for multiple screens and multiple devices.